All right, man. Thanks for coming on. Why don't you give the audience a quick introduction about yourself and who you are?
Thank you. So my name is Luis Garcia, and I am the president of PETE, and that's spelled PETE like the name, and we are an AI powered learning platform, and located in Orlando, Florida.
Nice. So, what kind of learning can someone do on your platform?
So we uh, try to solve the problem of translating expertise into training materials in digital learning. That becomes a very expensive thing to do, is creating materials for training, and especially when you have a staff for your
Yeah.
workforce learning. And so I created a platform that takes all your knowledge and creates that translation into training materials, including your voice narration, because we believe it's important to hear from an expert.
Hmm.
And so it turns that into courses automatically. And we also then have tools for evaluation of learning, but because delivering the courses is just half the equation of the learning equation. The other half is making sure that people learn. And so we have a very powerful tools for evaluation of learning and to help with folks that need training for the workforce, but they don't have the resources to start a training department.
Gotcha. Wow, that's
Mhm.
interesting. So, are you using some large language models to be able to assist with all of this learning?
Yeah, so we have an action model that is proprietary to us, and which brokers among different large language models and other models as well, depending on what the task is. So our proprietary software is trained as a instructional designer. Instructional design is the practice of doing that translation of expertise into training materials
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
effective of learning. So, and that to execute the task, it leverages large language models for it. But it does not train large language models. It keeps your data isolated because we deal with corporations and they don't want to share that and make the information public. So we isolate the data and the information within our own system.
And is this a subscription based service or?
So it is but it's a service with as a software, and so we do yearly contracts with our customers that they pay monthly.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
just off the top of my head, like I was just wondering, like, so for example, with my gyms, right, we have a sales process that we use when someone enters the gym and how we tour them and all of that stuff. So your platform could actually be used to train new hires that we bring in to teach them how to tour somebody properly, how to sell them a membership, sell them into PT, all of that stuff.
Absolutely. Actually, we have some similar use cases with some of our customers. Like we have a number of sports venues. Like here in Orlando, we have the Orlando Magic. So their venue is one of our customers, and also we have a soccer teams, the professional MLS and the women's team. Here, their stadium also is a customer of ours because they need to train the game day staff. So
Hmm.
the day that you have a game, they welcome 200 people into their venue to help with the fans that are coming to the game. And but it's not very cost effective to do digital content for training of those folks, and because creating training content is very expensive. But with our solution, they can. And so not only they're able now to train those folks, we also are able to simulate some of the situations that they're going to encounter to make sure that they learn. So we, for instance, for one of the stadiums, they have to, as part of the learning, they have to run through a simulation of a fan that is lost and that it wants to find where the bathroom is, and then so they have to walk him through those things. So yes, absolutely. One of the great uses of our platform is to train folks in retail areas. We also have retailers that use our software to train their associates to make sure that they are getting not only the product knowledge but also the cultural knowledge to pass on to their customers.
And you said you also put in like some like tests to make sure that they're absorbing the information, the
Yeah,
content?
So yeah, so in learning, the evaluation of learning is called assessment, and
Mm-hmm.
historically, in digital learning, hasn't really been a very effective way to evaluate learning. And honestly, in the classroom, in traditional classroom, there hasn't been really a good way to evaluate learning, and because tests are very effective for the instructor, but very ineffective for the learner.
Mm-hmm.
And when education and training migrated to be digital, it didn't really improve it, and actually automated a lot of it. But you still
Mm-hmm.
have the problem that you don't ask the right question, and you may not actually be evaluating the right thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so the best way to evaluate is probably the way you do your associates, is that you ask them questions, they answer, you ask more questions, and they answer, and so on. It's kind of the Socratic method of evaluation. That is
Mm-hmm.
not very scalable in almost any environment because it requires
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the expert to be available for it. So with our tools, we simulate the instructor, and then it's able to engage every learner one on one for the evaluation of learning. And so we're able to do evaluation of learning at scale. And then now
Interesting.
the same tool that will act as an instructor can also act as something else. It can act as a customer,
Hmm.
and then it push you through that situation. It could also act as a machine, and for a process, for instance, we have a customer that has a simulation to train folks how to create a password for their systems, and so the
People
learner
need
has to
trained how
go.
to do that.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. And creating a password is very is very companies have very strict policies on how to create them,
Sure, sure, that
and
makes sense.
the employees is there very frustrated not being able to get through it, and so we. It's very easy to create a simulation like that, and it doesn't require any programming. Just explaining to the simulation what you want to do, and the simulation run it for you, and then the person gets to practice that. So.
Interesting.
Mhm.
So, just thinking off the cuff here as you're talking, do you think that there could be a way to integrate personality tests into the assessment to figure out, number one, are they the best person for that? See, now you're starting to do it. Like, I understand now in the HR world, like personality tests are discriminatory, which I had no idea, but I just found this out this week that you can't, especially at the larger corporations, you're not allowed to use personality tests because it's discriminatory. But to
Right.
me, a personality test, like a DISC assessment, really tells you how a person, what motivates a person, what how they work, what drives them, all of that thing stuff. So I would be curious, like if there would be a way to integrate something like a disc or some type of personality assessment into this whole learning and assessment process to help employers figure out where best to put someone in the company. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely makes total sense. And I'll give you an example of something similar. And we have, a lot of the learning process has to do with the motivation of the learner and how you engage
Hmm.
the learner and the example I always give is you were in the classroom, in the normal classroom in your school, and the person in front of you was engaging and a good communicator. You felt educated,
Hmm.
and so it's very very important. So we found out that sometimes you have a course in the course delivered learning outcomes, things that the learner should learn at the end of the course. And but how you deliver that could also change. So if can have the same course with different learning with the same learning outcomes, but it could be delivered differently to different people because the the engineer may use certain language that engages him or her better, and
Hmm.
than the marketing person, than the
Yep.
support person, because they have, as
Yep.
you said, different motivations,
Yep.
and to be where they are. So using tools like ours, then you can create versions of the course that deliver to the same learning outcomes, but with different languages that will engage different learners and meet them where
Mm.
they are.
Interesting. So now
Yeah.
is your platform like when they're learning, is it strictly textual or is there like an avatar that they're interacting with?
Yeah. So it's very text based, and like everything in technology, and in the past 30 years, it starts with text, and then audio
Yeah.
follows, and then video follows,
Yeah.
and so it's very text based. But although we do deliver audio for the lessons. So when you create a lesson, let's say that you
Hmm.
have an employee manual for your gyms, right? And you probably have it already and have all your policies in there and things like that. And when they get started, you give it to them and you hope they read it. And they
Hmm.
never read it. And if you have an onboarding, you probably go through the most important policies in there. So today we can take that and create a course out of it, and automatically. And but we still, it's important that they hear from you, and
Hmm.
but we don't want to do different takes of you saying the thing. So we just take a sample of your voice and create a voice profile in our system. So when we create any course, they will be delivered in your voice and
Wow.
directly. So that is already in the platform from the get go. Um, Now, the next step that we're literally working on right now, this simulation engine, the skill simulation that we're just telling you about, is still text based, and the next stage for that is to be activated with voice. So instead of having the text of the person saying, where is the bathroom in the stadium, and then you answer by typing, it could be an actual the voice of a person saying, hey, I'm lost. Where is the bathroom? And then you can answer with your voice, because a lot of these positions, they're not gonna be answering in text to
Sure.
the fan in the stadium. They're gonna be answering with their voice. So we want to train them in that, and so we're working on that next generation right now.
Very cool.
Hmm.
Wow. It's going to be scary what the next 5 or 10 years is going to look like when it comes to AI and
Yes.
whatnot. I mean, just the deep fake stuff that's going on right now that you see on the internet is you have to really look and see, is like, is this real or not? Like
Yes.
a friend of
Yeah.
mine sent me a video today actually of Aaron Rodgers at his press conference from the game over the weekend, talking about how shitty his team is and how all of his teammates are like failing and doing this wrong and doing that wrong. But it was all fake. It was
He
all
never
AI.
said it.
He never said it, but it looked
Yeah.
so real. Like you had to zoom in on the video to see that the lips were just
Yeah.
slightly off from the audio, but just doing exactly what you said, where they take a sample of his voice and then recreate this comical
Yeah.
satire of a press conference. I mean, this is just the beginning.
Yes, I mean, fortunately for us, I mean, we have a very specific use, and
Yeah.
nothing goes directly to a learner without being approved by. But we're really trying to is assist the expert or the leader inside a company to be able to deliver training. And
Hmm.
but yes, so we can do it within the confines of your own information inside your own company and have full control over it. uh, but there are bad actors out there using the same kinds of tools and to do harm. And so we all I've just as we have learned the last 20 years of not believing everything's on the internet in the written
Yeah.
form, we have to
Yeah.
learn also how to not believe everything on the internet in video form or audio form.
Yeah, for sure. So how long ago did you start this platform?
So we've been around for a little over a year now, and we
Oh,
started
you're
last summer. Yeah.
okay. You're very new.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. But we had customers from the get go,
Okay.
and it's been interesting because we our first version was command line,
Really?
and yes, and but we had a customer that had the need, and they
Uh-huh.
needed to create courses fast to train a particular audience. And in this case, wasn't employees, it was consumers. But my co-founder, you know, did this a prototype and show it to a person and to gauge her reaction. And she's like, "How much?" So that's how we got our first customer,
Wow.
and we have customers ever since. Which is
Okay.
in terms of product development, it's a great way to develop product. It's just directly
Yeah.
with your customers. What do they need? We
Mhm.
develop it.
Mhm.
And whereas some other cases, folks spend a long time developing a product and then go out to see people want it. And
Yep.
we know our product is wanted from day one because we always had customers.
And so now a little like 15 months, 14 months later, how many customers are utilizing your platform now? You start with
We have,
one and now you're
we have about 16 customers now.
oh, good for you. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and a good pipeline too. We got a lot of attention in the last few months, and we have a lot of interest.
How did you even get started or involved with something like this?
So my co-founder had he's a local entrepreneur, a tech entrepreneur here in Orlando, very known, and he was the co-founder of the only unicorn from Orlando, and so. But he says that in his last few months, the last couple of years, they acquired companies, and then they had to quickly integrate these other entities into the culture, the processes, things like that. So he took it upon himself to create a way to do this, which was through educative methods, and he knew
Mm,
what I knew all along, which I've been in education, digital education, for 2 decades. My background is in technology and education, and
mhm,
I was an engineer, and then went by accident into higher education, and I was hired to create an online university, which I didn't know how to do at the time.
mhm,
But I
mhm.
did end up doing it and created the fastest growing online university at the time, and with over 12,000 students, and generating
Wow.
over $180 million a year in revenue. And
Wow.
so I knew exactly the challenges about digital education, what the problems that it solved, the problems that it brought with them, and so with that experience, he came to me and said, "I'd like to solve this problem for companies, and you have so much
Mhm.
experience in education. Would you come and join me?" And I said, "Yes," and we started, and that's how we
That's
got it. How we got
that's
started.
fantastic. That's
Yeah,
fantastic. And so
yeah.
the prior education company that you had, did you end up exiting?
Well, I was an employee, so
Oh, you were
I
an
ended
employee.
up,
Okay.
resigning. I guess that
Yeah.
was my exit.
Yeah. That's awesome though.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so
Uh,
what outside of AI, like what other platforms are you guys leveraging to build out this model or this program?
Um, in the back end, obviously, the cloud technologies is very important to get the right measures of security and scale it. So, AWS and
Mhm.
those kinds of things. We actually also leverage AI for development,
Mm.
and as an engineer, you're always thinking about algorithmically how you're gonna do things. And
Yep.
but our engineers don't think like that anymore. They're thinking about what is the prompt I need to write
Yeah.
so that the copilot will develop the algorithm that I need. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
our engineers go much faster than normal development teams in
Yeah.
developing our product. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Speaking of, I was at a conference last week for the gym industry, and we were sitting around one night at dinner after all of our meetings, and we were talking about our gym management software. It's kind of been a pain point for a lot of us in the industry, where no one really has a software that does what everything that we need, or the softwares that are out there, they're not up to par, right? And so somebody mentioned, why don't we just start our own software? And I was like, do you know what goes into starting your own software? That's
uh,
huge, right? Because we're doing everything from member management, checking in, billing, point of sale, all the recurring billing, all of that stuff. So there's a lot to it, right? Scheduling, all of that. So just for shits and giggles, that night I went back to my room and I opened it, Chat GPT, right? And I asked it, "Are you familiar with gym management softwares?" And it came back and it said yes, and it started listing off all of these popular gym management softwares. Like I didn't even prompt it to tell me; it told me which softwares it
yeah,
already knew. I said, "I want to build my own software. Would you be able to help me?" And it said, "Yes, absolutely." And so then I said, okay, what do we need to do? So then it starts asking me the questions of
yeah,
what I want, right? I said, well, I want it to be able to check my members in. I want it to be able to bill my members daily. I want it to do point of sale, and I started listing all of these things. And so then it responded and it said, okay, this is what I understand. Da, da, da. So long story short, we went through this whole exercise of what it needed in order to build out this software. And it said, okay, I'm going to work in the background on building this software out. If you have any other questions in the meantime, feel free to ask me. I said, okay, how long is this going to take you? And it said, probably about 2 weeks. So in the background, ChatGPT is building out this software for me, or like the parameters for the software. so that I could hand it off to a developer to refine it and build it out, right? And I said, holy, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, this is insane. This
Yeah.
is insane that it's able to do stuff like this.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and um, yeah, I was gonna think that yeah, you probably can put it together with existing technologies. It's like because they are point of sale solutions and there are all these
Yeah.
other solutions, but that's where the trick comes, right? How do you integrate them together into something that are actually very useful? We encounter sometimes similar to you, customers that say, "Well, I can use ChatGPT and write a course." They say, "Yeah, you can," and
Yeah.
but then you're gonna have to go to another piece of software to generate the voice, and how do you integrate for them to work it together?
Mhm.
And it's not really have the logic of how course creation works and how you integrate assessment into it. And by the way, where are you going to host it,
Yeah.
and how do you know who took the course and what? So is the integrated solution what brings the value to it. And but yes, I mean, my guess is that with assistance of a large language model, it could get you very far.
Yeah. I believe that. I mean, I
Yeah,
learned early on, because one of the pain points I had in the business was analytics, right? Understanding what the business was doing and where we at with the gym, and you know what what's the trend, et cetera, right? So because before, what we would do is we would print off like a dozen different reports out of the system, and then I would have my staff enter it into a spreadsheet, and then the spreadsheet would alchemate all of that data and create a dashboard for me and all of this stuff. And I'm thinking, well, all of these softwares have APIs. Why can't I just
yeah.
extract all of this data, dump it into a data warehouse, and manipulate the data how I want it, right? So I started to work on this. I had no idea what I was getting myself into because, I used Azure as my data warehouse, and I was using Databricks as the ETL
Yeah.
and putting it into a flat file. And, so I learned a lot doing this, but I also learned I spent an assload of money that didn't end up coming to fruition because the server cost alone was costing me a fortune per month, because there's so much data. Because I'm extracting data from my club management software, I'm extracting it from my CRM, I'm extracting it from like 4 or 5 different softwares to try and get all of this data into one warehouse to be able to visualize it and report on it. And I mean, to your point, there is a lot to it. It's not just, oh, I can have ChatGPT do it. Yeah, you could, but then you've got all of these other pieces that you've got to put together with it.
Well, the big, and by the way, I think you could get a technical co-founder and do the same. You know a lot already, and
Yeah.
you speak very intelligently about all the stuff, and already. And but one mistake that people have in terms of using AI is that they think that the AI is there to do the work for them,
Mhm.
and it is to do the heavy lifting for you, but still the brain comes from you, the creativity comes
Yep.
from you, and then
Yep.
what it's going to do is going to get you 80-90%
Yep.
there really
Yep.
fast, and then you're going to invest on time in the last 20 or 10 or 20%, the process what
Yep.
we call an AI refinement,
Mhm.
and that's where you're going to invest your time. Now when you finish, the total amount invested is going to be a lot shorter than what you did if you
Yep.
didn't have that help, but you save a ton of time. In our
Yep.
case, we estimate that with our tools, you're creating courses about 20 to 20 times, 25 times faster
Mm.
than if you do traditional methods. But you still have to create the course. You still have to
Yep.
go through the effort. And but if before you were spending, 120 hours creating a course, maybe this time you're spending 20, but you're
Yeah.
still spending 20 hours, and
Sure.
it's not you don't push a button and then reach your mind and understand what your end goal is, even when you don't understand it yourself,
Yep.
and then be able to give you an output. That's not going to happen. I don't think it will ever happen.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. I actually recently talked about this recently on another podcast where the big uproar, if you will, nowadays is everyone's scared that AI is going to just eliminate all of these jobs. And I said, look, people thought that the printing press was going to do the same thing. People thought that the manufacturing system was going to do the same thing. People thought that the internet was going to do the same thing, right? All that ends up happening is yes, it does eliminate some jobs, but it opens up additional opportunities,
Yeah.
additional ways of creating jobs that weren't there before.
That's correct. And the ATM is a great example. People thought that the ATM
Hmm.
was going to replace the branch, and it didn't. Actually, what it did is it took the cashiers and redefined their job to do services that they never thought they were possible
Yep.
to offer. And it was able to diversify the services that banks offer by eliminating a task and automating it. So what AI is going to do, yeah, it will be displacement of jobs, as you're saying. Absolutely, there are jobs. And when I was a kid, there were and you enter an elevator, there was a person whose job was to push the buttons of the elevator, and that
Yeah.
job
Right.
doesn't
Right.
exist anymore.
Yeah.
and
Right.
um, and so they are always displacement of jobs, and but many times new jobs are created.
Yep. Yeah. Totally. So I think
Mhm.
it's exciting time. I'm excited to me, it's exciting to me to see like I'm part of a time where we've had three major revolutions in my lifetime, right? Between internet, AI, and other technological advances, right? Not many people have been able to experience these kind of revolutions in their lifetime.
You're absolutely. I smile very gladly because oh, I fully agree with you actually, and I've been able to see the personal computer,
Yep.
this technological inflection point, right? The personal
Hmm.
computer, the internet, the smartphone, social media may or may not enter into that category, but at least three, if not four, if you want to count social media as another inflection point.
Yep.
This one is a fourth or a fifth, depending on how you count.
Yep.
I think it's the most profound of all
Yeah.
of them,
I agree.
and I think it's the most transformative
I agree.
of all of them, and so
Right.
it's very exciting to be in it.
This right here, right? The
Yeah, the
smartphone
smartphone.
has more computing power in my hand than NASA had. It's something like 15 times the computing power than what NASA had when they sent men to the moon in the
Yeah,
60s.
oh, it's probably
And
more.
and and
Yeah,
and those computers took up rooms, like ginormous rooms to be
that's
able to
correct.
calculate, right? And now here we are, we got Elon Musk that's launching humongous rockets into space and bringing them down and landing them inside of a tower. I mean, like this is like the best time to be alive, you know?
Yeah, cars
Yeah.
are driving themselves, and
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah. Someone just sent me last week. They live in California. Uh they ordered a like a Uber or whatever, but the Uber was completely autonomous. It had no driver.
yeah, Waymo maybe was
Yeah.
and yeah, fully autonomous vehicle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't
It's
ridden one yet, and I haven't tried it yet.
you said you're in Orlando, right? Or no,
We're in
Miami.
Orlando, and we have a city here, Lake Nona, which is a test bed for one of those autonomous vehicles. And so
Okay.
they have a bus in that portion of the city that is fully autonomous. And it's not a bus;
Wow.
it's more like a small van, almost like. And it has a very strict route. And so yes, and the city, our city is very forward thinking. So it's been working on
Mm.
the right legislation to be able to accept autonomous vehicles in the future. So it's exciting. Where is home for you? I didn't ask you.
Chicago.
Oh,
Chicago,
Chicago.
yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's great that, like you're saying, I mean, because Orlando is a ginormous tour spot, right?
Yeah.
So you're putting in an autonomous vehicle in a city that has a lot of chaotic traffic coming in and out. That is a perfect way to test that technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But Orlando is not all, I mean, is most definitely um, the best theme parks in the world
Hmm.
are here. Uh, but what people don't sometimes don't start thinking, in order for that to happen, and there has to be enough technology, know-how, and intellect in here for that to be maintained. And
Yeah.
and the technology for rides is very similar than the technology for simulation, for military simulation, for instance.
Hmm.
So Orlando is also a very a hub for military simulation, and
Oh, really?
yeah, yeah, and because of that, we are a nascent technology ecosystem as well.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
this region has been in advanced technology, if you count from the space era, from the 50s all the way to today.
Yeah, true, true. I mean,
Yeah.
Florida's got how many launch sites? I don't remember what it is, but
In our coast, we actually call the Space Coast,
yeah.
and has all the launch pads and NASA and all these companies that, in order to put a rocket in space, there's a lot of engineering that has to happen.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, yeah, I consider myself very lucky to be in a small city that has so much technology forward thinking.
Yeah, I often think like I'm not taking anything away from what Elon has accomplished, kind of like going off on a little tangent here. Uh, I often wonder, I mean, what he has achieved has been absolutely remarkable. Absolutely
Yeah.
remarkable to be able to develop reusable rockets, right? Um, I just wonder, just as a talking point, I just wonder the amount of dollars and time spent in developing that, if that was used to develop a new way of propulsion rather than lighting gas on fire to push you into space.
Yeah, it's funny because a few weeks ago we were in a pitch competition, and sometimes startups go and pitch to potential investors, and one startup was exactly about that.
Really?
So, yes,
That's
about a new way of propulsion, and it's expensive to do. So they had an alternative business plan for services to help pay for all the because it's like inventing a new drug. You got to go through stages and in
yep.
order to get there. But yeah, they have a very strong thesis for a new way of propulsion.
I mean, it's just like how we generate power. To me, it seems so archaic how we generate electricity in the world, where if you've got, let's just say, a coal burning facility, we burn coal to heat up water, to create steam, to spin a turbine, to create electricity. To me, like we've been doing it that way for, 100 and some years. I can't believe in this time that we haven't figured out. I mean, obviously we have wind and solar, right? But that takes so much square footage
Yeah.
or square miles to generate enough power. I just can't believe that we have not developed some new way of developing or generating electricity outside of steam, even nuclear, right? Nuclear is just you're heating up water to create steam to spin a turbine.
So there have been some new advancements in nuclear. I'm not an expert in this, but the last couple of weeks have been some announcements because sometimes the marketplace
Yeah.
takes care of it, right? And power has been such a thing that is an
Hmm.
infrastructure that only governments kind of like and very big companies do. And but because of the demand of AI, it requires so much
Hmm.
power that is becoming very difficult to supply the power
Yep.
to power AI, no pun intended.
Yep.
And so there were announcements this week from I think from Google and Microsoft,
Google.
and
Yeah. Mini nuclear
to
plants.
get their own nuclear plant. And
Yeah.
uh, uh, and that's very interesting, not only because of them, but it says, well, if these companies are willing to make the investment themselves, and these companies are
Hmm.
very large, right? Of course,
Hmm.
they're larger than most economies, and but they, like any other technology, should lose cost over time. That could probably mean that in the future will open up the ability for the nuclear technology to become more efficient and smaller and smaller and smaller. Who knows, maybe in 10, 15 years you have a nuclear plant at your house.
I that is the theory. I have read about that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's completely doable, and especially nowadays, I think I've read that they have developed where they don't even have to use a high radioactive isotope like uranium. They've got
Right.
other radioactive. I don't even want to call it radioactive, but other material that's not as radioactive to
Right.
harm humans that could still do. I mean, I'm telling you, like I'm super excited for the next 20 to 50 years. I hope
Yeah.
I'm alive over the next 50 years to see how far we advance.
Yeah, because it opens the ability to solve problems that we couldn't solve before. Yeah,
Correct.
but this thinking power that we have, and I think of AI more as a thinking power and an assistant in helping you think.
Yeah.
And just like you went through your example, so And I do that quite often. I use AI a lot as a thinking partner. And if
Hmm.
I were to do this, what are the steps I have to take?
Mm.
And then I keep asking questions, and then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, now I got a path, I got a
Yeah.
plan into executing this thing that I knew nothing about half hour ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, that opens possibility. It can look at patterns that humans can really find the granularity to find certain patterns. It can
Hmm.
find them by brute force, but it can find them. So that means that we can solve problems that we never thought that we could solve.
Hmm.
And so I'm very optimistic about it. I think that in my lifetime we'll cure cancer. In my
Yeah.
lifetime we'll probably get to solve and a lot of the climate change, extreme poverty. This is a lot of things that technology can really help, and
Hmm.
that I think AI is gonna be in the middle of. It's gonna come with a cost,
Yeah.
and there's gonna be bad actors, and there's gonna be terrible things that happen today. If 25 years ago you would have told me that social media had this whole other side that was very dark and very harmful, I would not believe you.
Yeah.
And it's very hard for us sometimes to see the bad side of a new technology, of the consequence. But all in all, I think that the good is going to outweigh the bad big time.
Yeah, I don't know if you recently saw how AI was able to early detect breast cancer in a patient based on a scan, and the cancer was so minute that it would have taken the normal person like an extra 5 years before they would have found it, and they caught it early enough that they were able to save this woman's life, save her from
Yeah,
this cancer so early on that they didn't have to do extraordinary surgery on her, all of that stuff. So I mean, the sky is the limit.
yeah, and maybe it
With
is it is not that we cure cancer, but it is that we find it so early
hmm
in all the patients that we are able to treat it very effectively because it becomes a problem before it becomes a problem to anybody. And
yeah,
so I'm totally with you. I'm super optimistic,
yeah, me
and
too.
I'm in general an optimistic guy, and but I'm really excited about this technology.
It fascinates me. And then when you couple that with how we've advanced just recently with quantum computing, yeah, I mean, quantum computing is going to take a if that gets fully developed in our lifetime, where we are having quantum computers sitting on our desk. I mean, you're talking. I would even like. I am. I have no words for what's possible.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. But what I do know is that it will not replace human ingenuity
No.
and curiosity and creativity.
Hmm. Yeah. I was going to ask you. So your guys's large language models, because right now, ChatGPT is the most popular one, right?
Mhm.
And right now they have ChatGPT 4, and they're saying when ChatGPT 5 comes out, it's going to be just the advancement from 4 to 5 is light years ahead of where they're at now. So how do you guys leveraging AI in your platform? Because I know there's a lot you could broker large language models, but how does that compare to ChatGPT 4 for what you guys are using it for?
So so creating these frontier models is incredibly expensive and resource intensive. So the companies have, OpenAI have had a very large investment, and we have folks from Claude, which is
Mhm.
another model that we really like, and so we're not gonna do that. So the but we can leverage them because they're
Mm.
both a product and a platform. So you can access them via APIs and broker them. And that's what we do. So
Mm.
for certain of the tasks that we do, it's actually connecting with some of the OpenAI algorithms. For other things, we are connecting to other models, and so
Oh.
we're giving them the logic, and so we leverage them in order to get to uh, our use case, which I think, in terms of generative AI, which is
Mhm.
this new generation of artificial intelligence tools, is where the most exciting future it is. I mean, a lot of people talk about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, and and I think that's a worthy pursuit for those companies to do that. But when I see the excitement, it's like using that power for a very specific case, because then you can
Hmm.
get really good at it,
Hmm.
and you can eliminate the hallucinations and all that, because you really control what's happening. And so ours is almost like a small model, and because it has a very narrow focus.
Mm. And I know you said that.
And we don't care. I mean, today it could be OpenAI. We use OpenAI for a lot of things, and but we use other models for others. So if tomorrow the marketplace provides us with a better version of the language model, we switch to that. It doesn't really matter to us.
Hmm. And you said that your guys' platform doesn't learn, right, because of confidentiality
Doesn't
of the.
teach those models. So when you use ChatGPT today and any other model, when you're prompting it, whatever you're giving it, and is going into training that model, and it's because it's going into training that model, is making that information public,
Mm.
and that's how he learns, and that's how your exercise of how to create a software for gene management, if somebody else in the future asks the same question, it doesn't have to go through the same thinking that is going
Gotcha.
with you, because it
Gotcha.
already did it once.
Gotcha.
And um, and uh, with us, we get to ask them the questions to get an output. But when we ask that a question to a large language model, we do it in a way, and the APIs provide for that, that it says, please don't keep this information for your own training, and
Mm.
actually it doesn't. So that
Gotcha.
protects the proprietary information of a company to not become public domain.
But can you guys create it so that it learns to be more efficient with the training?
So we do that in our model,
Oh,
and
okay.
yeah, we could do that, but if we do that, we'll do it within our model,
Got
and
it.
and within that customer, so that it doesn't. It learn to make more efficient for your particular customer, but it doesn't have to, again, compromise the information of the customer. In fact, when you have a contract with us, by contract, we don't own any of the information that you're providing us,
Uh,
and on even the output of it. So you create a course with us, or several courses. If you end the relationship with us, we export all those courses and give them to you. They're yours. They're not ours.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we don't keep
Interesting.
any of the intellectual property. Yeah.
Does your platform work on like iPads and all of that stuff too? It's all web
Yeah,
based?
so it's web based. So yeah, in reactive. So it very much can. So all the power is within the server. Yeah.
I'm just selfishly thinking about my own business right now.
I'll be happy to have you.
Yeah, uh, because one thing that we utilize, like I was telling you earlier, when we tour a person, there's a script that you have to follow, right?
Right.
Um, Anyone that walks into a gym, they come in for typically 90% of the time they come in for one reason, and that's to lose weight or get in better shape, right? But
Hmm.
there's more to it than that. And so my staff has to follow a script when they're touring the person to walk them through to not only know which membership tier to pitch them, but also to know how to pitch them if they're going to need personal training or any kind of assistance with working out, right? And most humans get very complacent and they don't they skip steps. And when you skip steps, the script doesn't work.
Right.
The process doesn't work.
So we in our platform, what we'll do is that we train on that process, and then you create a simulation that will act as if it was the customer coming in. And
Mm.
so the customer is going to come in asking the typical question, and then you have to answer, and then you can make it in a way that the model will force you to make sure that you're following the script. But if not,
Oh,
it will also give you an assessment at the end and say, okay, this is what you did right, this is where you need to work, and then we store all those conversations so the supervisor can later download them and then do additional coaching on those if they want to follow up. Yeah.
oh, I
And
love it.
yeah, absolutely. So we make sure that they're all following the same thing. But you don't have time to sit down with each one of them and pitch me again.
Right.
Pitch me one time. Now I'm a teenager that and coming in. Now and I'm 60-year-old coming in. And
Yeah,
now I'm a person that lives close. Now I'm a person that lives far. I mean, all those scenarios you can put them into the simulation, and the simulation will run them through.
that's very cool. We're gonna have to talk offline. I'd be interested how we can implement this into my business.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. So what are your guys' goals? How big are you trying to get to? Do you have parameters you're trying to hit?
Yeah, of course. We have investors, and they
Yeah.
and they want to see success. We were very, in a very challenging market for venture. We've done well. We raised an initial round of capital of $2.2 million this year, and which allows us to grow a little bit, get more resources, and invest in our product and our marketing. And uh, we think that there's enough in the U.S. for a $5 billion market. We don't need to be
Mm.
that big, but we
Mhm.
can think that we can become $100 million top line in next 5 years. And uh, and uh, because we like companies that are between 50 employees and 500 employees, and we're very specific about that, because on the 50 employees, usually organic training works really well. And by organic, I mean shadowing,
Yeah.
let's get in this conference room and teach you the stuff, and kind of thing. It's small enough that you can have people train each other. And when you are over 500 employees, and training is important for your company, which is important for everybody, then you say, okay, well, I can then invest, $500,000 in the training department, and in the platform, all that kind of stuff, right? But between 50 and 500, it's like you have some resources, but not enough to create a department. You
Yep.
definitely have enough employees that this shadowing doesn't work, and then there are not many platforms that target those size of organizations, and they are hundreds of thousands of them in the United States.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great I think that's great what you guys are doing. That there's a lot of value
Yeah,
there
thank you.
for companies. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll
So
we'll, we'll see. We'll see, but in the next couple of years, getting into the hundreds and thousands, not maybe 1,000 customers in the next, that will be great to have,
mhm.
and be able to help that many organizations. That would be great.
Are you guys advertising at all or
Yeah, we do. We advertise in digital platforms like Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and Google, like
Mhm.
everyone else. But the majority of our business came from referrals, actually.
I think that's most businesses, right? I mean,
Right.
even my gym business, I mean, all of my businesses I'm a part of, it's mostly referrals.
Yes. When somebody's happy with it, they tell their
Yeah.
friends, and they refer us, and so we got this far. A lot of it in the Orlando market, which is great. Orlando likes to support the local companies, so we have some medium-sized companies that have taken the plunge with us, and we're very
Yeah.
proud of that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
So if people wanted to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
was very easy, because we have our domain is pete.com, pete.com. So you just gotta go there and check us out, and if you're interested, go to our contact page and leave your information, and we contact you right back.
That's great. Man, how did you guys get that domain? That feels like that's a domain that's probably was captured back in the 90s and somebody was hanging on to it.
Yeah, that could be another podcast. How to get a four-letter domain?
Oh, wow. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know.
Yes, yes, it
That's
did. It
great.
did. It did take some capital, and but we did get a great deal for it. Much
That's
because
good.
we don't have a lot of money, and but we did get a great deal for it, and so it's great to be able to have that. So pete.com is where you can find it. We're also the platforms, but that's the easiest way to get.
Great. I'll make sure to leave that in the show notes. Luis, thank you so much for coming on. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you so much.